So you've seen a lot of hype on the internet from Dave Hodges and others. Even Alex Jones said, this is going to imminent World War III. He had me on his show last Sunday, and I said, I disagree, Alex. Respectfully, I realize that things look hot here, but here's why I don't believe this is going to lead to World War III. First of all, the Russians aren't ready. And they won't be ready until the beginning to the mid of next decade. All of their top-of-the-line weapon systems, and believe me, Russia and China are intending to strike the West, but they need a full capacity blue water navy. They need hundreds and hundreds of ships. You don't run a world war without having a huge blue water navy, submarines, ballistic missile submarines, missile frigates, and all that stuff. And yes, China is developing hypersonic weapons. The Russians are developing hypersonic maneuvering warheads on their missiles while we're disarming. And that's another story. But it's very important to understand Russia's not ready. None of these first-line weapon systems are coming into production until 2020, 21, 22, and 23, and 24. Now, could they strike before then? Could. They wanted to commit suicide, but they're not stupid. And I don't think they're going to strike the West until sometime, my gut feeling is about the middle of the next decade. But all I can say is, when they're going to be ready. I don't really know. I mean, we're dealing with three basic conspiratorial power centers in the world. The Anglo-American globalists who control the West. They are as much our enemy as the Russians and the Chinese, even though they pretend otherwise. Russian and Chinese are separate globalist powers. They are trying to create their own version of the New World Order. They have gone into a temporary alliance to take down the West, and they're planning to do that with a nuclear preemptive strike. And so Elder McConkie was not wrong when he said nuclear war, which certainly must come. It will come someday. And in my previous lectures to you, I have talked about how I think the United States is going to betray its own nation, allow the first strike to fall. This is a very important piece of information. There's a secret presidential decision directive, number 60, which basically instructs the military not to rely on launch on warning, but to be prepared to absorb a nuclear first strike and retaliate afterwards. Now, do you know what that means? Do you know what launch on warning is? Launch on warning means that when our satellites detect, and they have all these heat sensors, when they see a rocket blast, they put everything automatically on alert, and if it is confirmed as a missile launch, they launch our missiles. Now, what does that do? It means the Russian and Chinese missiles coming in aimed at our missile silos hit what? Empty silos. The missiles are already gone. And our missiles can be retargeted in the air as long as they're in their boost phase, and they can hit live targets that are still out there. So who wins in a nuclear war? The one who launches second, not first. Okay? So, in PDD 60, which was entitled A Complete Revamping of the U.S. Nuclear Posture, instead of the previous one in the Reagan administration was, to win a nuclear war. That was the nuclear posture and the nuclear philosophy of the United States, and that's what they're preparing to win a nuclear war. The new posture under Bill Clinton's regime, 1997, was prepared to absorb a nuclear first strike and retaliate afterwards. And General Butch Neal of the Marine Corps said, in reaction to that, retaliate with what? And the disarmament people said, well, you've got the ballistic missile submarines. No, you don't. Not all of them, because Bill Clinton in 1997, the same year, agreed to unilaterally keep 50% of our ballistic missile submarines in port at any one time so that we would prove to the Russians that we were vulnerable and that we would not be a threat to them. That's like laying down and saying, kill me, or at least half of our soldiers, just to prove that we have no foul intent. Is this suicide? Is it stupid? No, it's a globalist agenda. It's to invite this nuclear strike. Why would the globalists want to do that? If this, as the left says, a conspiracy about power, about money, about greedy capitalism, then it doesn't make sense. Why would you invite a nuclear strike that would destroy the economy of America? Wouldn't that destroy the globalists and all their wealth as well? Sure it would. It's not about money. They are going to invite this strike. And part of that invitation is disarmament. You know, even though the Russians have cheated on every single disarmament treaty, the U.S. keeps dutifully disarming. We just removed all 3 of our warheads on our remaining Minuteman III missiles and turned them into single warhead missiles. 2/3 reduction in our nuclear throw weight because we're abiding by SALT II. What are the Russians doing in return? They're building new Topol-M SS-24 missiles every quarter. And how can they get away with that? Because the U.S. certifies that they're abiding by the treaties. They say that they, you know, basically it's because the U.S. has never been able to inspect all of the Russian facilities. And so they basically state that whatever the Russians say they're in compliance with, that is the official view of the United States. Are they stupid? No, they're not stupid. They're basically giving Russia a pass. They're looking the other way, and Russians must be shaking their head. These people must be stupid. They're just letting us get away with murder. General Habiger of the U.S. Strategic Command admitted we've never been in Yamato Mountain. Yamato Mountain is the secret underground bunker in the Ural Mountains, as big as the Washington, D.C. metro area underground. How can you certify that the Russians are in compliance with treaties when you've never been in Yamato Mountain? They could have stockpiles of missiles. They could have whole missile factories underneath there. They got 6 railroad lines coming in each entrance, and they say it's a mining complex, but you never see mining cars coming out. 1997, that was revealed about Yamato Mountain. In the New York Times, front page, you can see it in November. And they asked the CIA, what do you think about this? Oh, we're not worried, it's defensive. How do you know it's defensive? You've never been in there. That just shows how they've been told to cover for the Russians. Why cover for the Russians? Because the globalists have been building Russia and China as nuclear powers and enemies since their creation in order to have an eventual nuclear war that will drive you into the arms of a global government. Now, why do they need war to do that? Aren't we just blending into a global government? Isn't that what WTO and NAFTA and GATT are all about? Isn't that what the TPP is about and the TPIP is about? These world free trade organizations, anything but free trade. Doesn't take 1,000 pages or 3,000 pages to enact free trade. These are mini globalist organizations that yield sovereignty. But I'll tell you, the globalists know that at some point when they start to inconvenience you and you get sued for a wetlands violation and you've got to go to Brussels to defend yourself and hire an international attorney, you're going to say enough. That's why they know they'll have to give you a war to force you into this.